Okay, well, it's story time again, and we're at the very back end of the property uh, in front of my wife's temple that she and I built. I don't know, it's been 5 or 7 years now, uh, and we've been together 25 years, and that is the first thing we actually did without getting in one fight. And that's saying something for my rambunctious wife, and I, also rambunctious. I got some notes for myself because this is a complicated story, and I need a couple notes to help me out. So we first met on a singles ad. I put an ad in one year. I'd been dumped by some woman. I was a bit depressed, so I put an ad in the local newspaper. Back then it was newspapers rather than internet. And oh, by the way, it's freezing ass cold out, and we just had 3 or 4 days of really heavy rain. Yahoo! And we're kind of in winter mode now. All of the ground is wet. The fire season is over. We're happy. So anyhow, I met her on the not on the internet, through a singles ad in the newspaper. And I put a little ad in the newspaper, and basically I said, "Hey, I'm Mr. Cool. I'm over here, artist. Good guy. And do you send me a note if you want to meet up?" And that winter, I got 80 phone calls. I was like, whoa, I was completely overwhelmed with phone calls. But, I was lonely that winter, so I just kind of saved all the calls, and just throughout the winter, whenever I felt kind of lonely, I just call one of the women and talk to her. And hardly met any of them. I think I met 4 or 5 total, and none of them worked out. But we had fun talking, and there was conversations going on, and it kind of whiled away the hours or minutes, depending on how much conversation we had. But it didn't really net anything. And I was at that point of my life, I was about 45, where I decided, I really want to settle down. I've been screwing around a lot up to that point, and it was like, it got kind of old. Although the memories are fun. Anyhow, so I decided, I want to settle down. I really want to have a solid relationship. And so I decided that next winter to put a more serious ad in. And I basically, the ad said, "I'm a serious artist. I live up in the woods. I'm looking for a woman in touch with her wounded child." We were doing all that wound stuff back then in the early 90s, maybe mid 90s. And I got 3 phone calls. And one of them was a woman who thought that, her son had a broken arm. And she said, is that the criteria of a wounded child? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm thinking, oh, this is too much. But one of the phone calls was my wife, Barbara. And she was, pretty intelligent, sharp-witted, quick. And we had conversations like you could not believe. I was just so impressed with how we connected in and how we, just had a conversation. And so, but I had always been attracted to painted ladies. And I always it would be a big mistake, but that was what I was attracted to. And so I hook up with these women, and turned out, you know how it is. Once you have sex, the blinders go on. You don't see anything for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you're in this horrible relationship with a wacko nut job, and how can you get out of it? Well, that was always the problem. So I decided this time I wouldn't see what she looked like until I already got to know her, and I already got to know who she was and how she thought. And Barbara was like, as I said, sharp as a tack. So I purposely didn't meet her. We had conversations for an entire month, and she kept saying, "Hey, well, let's meet up." And I'd have some kind of excuse. Oh, I'll be out of town that weekend, or oh, I'm not feeling that well, or some kind of wild, lame-ass excuse. And we didn't meet for that entire month, but we talked every night on the phone. And by the time I met her, I was totally in love with her. I mean, I was just head over heels, and I didn't even know what she looked like. Finally, one day she says, "Look, we got to meet up." I said, okay, let's meet up in a restaurant about halfway between Sacramento and Nevada City, in the city of Auburn. And so, we show up there, and, I was kind of worried because what's she going to look like? And by the way, I was already sold. This is the woman for me. But, they still have the looks thing, and, you had to have chemistry, right? You gotta. So I'm sitting in the restaurant. I show up early so I can get a good spot so I can scope her out. And she walks in, and I'm like, oh, man, she is so cute. But she's dressed in army fatigues, of all things. I'm like, really? Big fluffy blouse and fluffy pants. I can't see at all what she looks like physically. But, we sat down and we had, 4 hours of conversation. Finally, the restaurant guys came over and said, "Look, you either got to buy some food or leave." So we decided to leave. And I don't know, a couple of days later, again, conversations every night on the phone. A couple of days later, I says, "Hey, well, I'm going to be down in Sacramento doing an art show. Why don't we meet up and we'll go on a date?" She said, "Well, great." So I'm thinking, what kind of date can we go on? Because the regular kind of dates, you go out to dinner and stuff, they were pretty boring. And I was like, I don't know. So, and I wanted this to be good. And we'd already had dinner together. So, so I'm doing the craft show, and she shows up in, late afternoon. And I tear down the show, and she and I get in the car, and she says, "Okay, where are we going?" I said, "Well, it's a surprise." And so we go out to Nimbus Dam, which is about 20 miles from where we were at the Sacramento State College. And go out to the Nimbus Dam, and they have a canoe rental place there. And we rent a canoe and go out on this lake and just kind of float around on the lake. And I'm paddling her out, and it's very romantic for her, and it's romantic for me too, but I'm a guy, so it's hard for me to understand romance. So we're paddling out on the lake, and we get to this one heron rookery. There must have been, 500 birds, and they all had nests in these 4 or 5 trees. It was really cool. Anyhow, we're paddling around the lake, and we get to a point. She says, "Hey, let me paddle." And I went, "Oh, okay, sure, yeah." So, basically we just turn the canoe around, and she starts paddling, and she doesn't know how. And basically, We paddle in about a 40-foot arc, a circle, for the next 30 minutes. And she's trying to figure out how to do this and how to do this. And I'm just kicking back and relaxing and just enjoying the scenery and waiting for her to figure it out. And not trying to tell her what to do or anything like that, because I knew, I've been with other women, especially sharp-witted women, who like get a bit upset with guys who want to tell them what to do. So I just kick back in the canoe and I'm just enjoying the sunshine and the birds and the water. And we get to the end, and she says, well, maybe you can take over and get us back. So I take back over and get us back into shore, and we put the canoe away. And she told me, I don't know, probably a couple of months later, she said that was the clincher for the relationship. She said, when you just relaxed and let me just try to work it out, I knew you were a good guy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a good guy. Oh, yeah. You know, I hadn't heard that much in the last decade from women, but it was really good to hear. So, well, you know, we hooked up. We decided about 6 months later, we decided, okay, it's time. She's going to move up to Nevada City. We rebuilt the house, and she moved in. And, you know, a couple of years, it was like incredibly romantic. We had little arguments here and there, but they were cute arguments, you know, fun ones. And, you know, the makeup sex was worth it. And, you know, that was a very romantic time for me and for her. We talk about it with lovingness. And after about 2 years, I don't know, something happened. Well, we dropped into the power struggle, which is typical in most relationships, especially with two really rambunctious, you know, headstrong people. And I don't know, for the next 5 years, it was brutal. I mean brutal. We fought every day, sometimes all day. There'd be like, at times there would be like 5 battles a day, and each one would last an hour, and it was exhausting. And I'm just like, you know, at one point I'm just thinking, is this really worth it? But I knew that I was committed to this woman, and whatever we were going to go through, we were going to have to go through. I was either going to go through it with her, or I was going to go through it with the next one. So I thought, okay, I'm just sticking with this one. And we made an agreement, because she felt the same way. So our agreement was that no matter what, we're together. No matter how bad it gets, we're together. And I'm thinking, okay, so I just sweat this out, and at some point we get all of the issues worked out, and hopefully, you know, we come back around to the, you know, those first 2 years of very romantic and, you know, loving times. And at one point, and at many points actually, you know, one of our arguments would be, you know, over stupid stuff. As you know how it goes. And, you know, we'd get into these big knockdown dragouts. You know, the agreement is nobody touches each other, nobody messes up anybody's other stuff. So there would be a lot of screaming and yelling. You know, it was, I can laugh now, but man, it was pretty hard. And every time we get into an argument and it'd get, you know, it'd start to get wound up, she'd walk out the door. Fuck you, I'm out of here. And she'd walk out the door and slam the door and get in the car and peel out going down the driveway and get out of here. And I'm like, she's left forever. She's never coming back. That's, of course, that's what she said. An hour later, she'd come back, and I'm like, God, you got to stop this. She goes, well, I have to do that. I have to do that because that's where I take the power. And I went, oh, okay, I get it. So I said, okay, here's the deal. Yeah, I've said that many times, but this one worked. I said, the minute you are absolutely done with me, I mean, this is it, you're done, you're out of here. And not just because you're out of here because you're emotionally distraught or really angry, but you're really done with me. You got to stay another year. She went, whoa. She thought about that for a day or so, actually. And she said, finally came back and she says, okay, I agree. And what that did was that allowed me to relax whenever she bailed on me. I could just go, oh, well, I know she's coming back because she has to come back for the next year if she's really done. So we went through, I mean, hell and high water. And our other agreement is that whatever comes up, it gets dealt with right now. We don't wait even 5 minutes. We deal with it right now. And I can't tell you how many times we'd be pulled over on the side of the freeway, yelling and screaming at each other. Or, she'd get so mad that she'd say, pull over right now. And I'd pull over and she'd get out of the car and start walking. And I'm like, well, okay. So I just follow her until she calmed down enough to get back in the car. And a number of those times it was raining real hard too. So, but then, what happened is this went on for the first 7 years of our relationship. Well, the 5 years, 2 years of romantic time, and then 5 years of hell. And then all of a sudden one day I just realized, geez, and I said to her, I said, geez, we haven't gotten in a fight in a month or so. She goes, yeah, I noticed that. And I'm like, well, what happened? And it took us a while to kind of work it out. But in reality, because we dealt with every issue as it came up, and it didn't get buried, and it didn't get hidden, and it didn't come out a month later as something else, we worked through all the issues. And that was about 20 years ago. And we have been in marital bliss for the last 20 years. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Now, as I said, 7, 8 years ago, we built this temple. Hey, we still get in squabbles. You can't say that we don't. But sometimes there are big issues, but we've already dealt with the core issue of it. And it comes up, and it's like, and a minute later, we're done. And it's like, well, okay, fine. I still love you, and, we go on about our day. So, and that happens a couple times a day. We're rambunctious people. But when we built this temple, she really wanted a temple. And I said, well, you got the house. And she goes, well, no, because you're in the house. And I'm like, well, I'm up at my shop most of the time. I'm not in the house hardly at all, except in the evening. She says, well, it's not my space, it's our space. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So at one point she came home from being out traveling or something like that. And she says, okay, this is it. I'm building a temple. Either you're going to build a temple for me, or I'm going to hire somebody to build the temple. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm going to have some clown come on the property and build this piece of crap building. That's not going to happen. I love this property. So I said, okay, I'll build the temple. I says, okay, but here's the thing. If I build the temple, you got to help. She, oh yeah, I can help. I'm a helper. I'm in a helping mode. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's right. So we started by building the deck that first summer. And so, here's 20 foot long, two by what? 2x8s, maybe 2x10s. I thought, okay, grab the other end and go pick up the 2x10 and drag it over and make the cuts and get them all set up. And I'm thinking, oh man, she's going to burn out any day. And then I get to, and the other part of the deal was, as soon as she bails on me, I'm back in my shop. And I'm thinking, oh, a week. She'll last a week. Damn, that woman lasted all summer. We built that deck. It took one whole summer. And then the next year we built the framing for the building and the roof. And the next year we enclosed it and put insulation and sheetrock in. And the next year we put a really nice floor in. And again, not one argument. I mean, we would show up every day and work for 2 or 3 or 4 hours every day. And it was actually a success for the relationship, because we realized we could do it together. And since then we've done other projects, and it's been pretty good. I love this woman. I love her to death. And I don't think I could do without her. We're getting to the age now to where we're talking about what happens at the end. And I just hope that, both ways. I hope that I'm the first to go so I don't have to be alone. And then the other side of it is I don't want to be the first to go so she doesn't have to struggle to be being alone. So, hey, this was a story and a half, very romantic. Nick Collier, checking out.